For sure. I can't even, it's been just enormous personal growth the whole way through.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the biggest wins that you can get from, investing. And just like you said, it's not just like, about making money. Money's like fake stuff. It's like a resource that's not even real, right? Basically, right?
Yeah.
But what you get and how you grow, it stays with you forever.
Hey, welcome to the show. We have Michael Lee today. Michael, tell us a little bit about your background, how you got into real estate, maybe, your past corporate life, if you had something like that.
Okay. Starting with my past corporate life. So from a young age, I'm 33 right now. I'm still pretty young, but from let's say high school till 33, I was doing all kinds of entrepreneurial ventures without even realizing I was an entrepreneur. Like I was the guy at the high school that was selling the sneakers, the rubber bands, and I didn't realize I was an entrepreneur back then. I tried to work corporate, but I really wasn't a good fit. So I had this idea when I was younger that I just didn't understand how to be a business person. I didn't understand how to be an employee. Eventually, I realized that it's because I was an entrepreneur. So I got into sales. That started going very well for me. Eventually, I started various companies. And prior to real estate, I was one of the partners in a solar panels brokerage. So we were brokering residential solar panel installations. That went pretty good for a few years. And then I was looking for something new to get into. And that's when I came across the idea of real estate, wholesaling, investing and wholesaling. And it's funny that you asked me that, Jose, because the very day that I started getting into wholesaling, you were right there. It was a networking event and you were one of the speakers. So
yeah, nice.
It's funny how things go full circle,
For sure. Well, since then, it hasn't been too long, like just a few years, and you've obviously done really well for yourself with a lot of multiple strategies that you're implementing, and we're gonna get into that.
Yeah, for sure. So, maybe we take us back. So, you decided that this is something you wanted to do. How did you get started? What was your plan and what was your initial strategy?
Okay. So when I got started, I'm at this networking event, Jose's speaking, there's some other wholesalers that are speaking. And there was one wholesaler in particular that was discussing how there's a case study, how they did a $70,000 assignment fee. And I'd heard about wholesaling in the past, but I thought it was only happening in America. So I was just blown away. It's like, wow, I have to do this. And the very beginning, I had sales skills, but I didn't have any connections and I didn't have any capital, right? So I wanted to plug in my skill set into something I could take advantage of in real estate. And I saw wholesaling as a way that I could get involved. So I jumped right into the wholesaling.
Yeah, that's cool. So, how are you able to penetrate the market? I mean, the market has changed significantly. Maybe we can talk about that right now, even in terms of wholesaling. So you're absolutely right that even when we heard about wholesaling the very first time, we were like, nope, that's something that doesn't exist in Canada. Like that's something that only happens in the US, right? And then all of a sudden there was this sort of surge of people who kind of caught on to this idea that no, like this can work in Canada too, right? And so maybe, talk to us about that. And if someone was looking to get into wholesaling, what do you need to do? Like, how do you start wholesaling?
Yeah, that's funny because you guys are going to know who I'm talking about. I'm not going to name any names, but one of the speakers that day had a background as a lawyer, right? And so I was like, "Whoa, what is this? Like, is this even legal?" And he's like, "Actually, yes, I could tell you it is legal."
Yeah.
And I was like, "Okay, I'm doing this."
Yeah.
So as far as how you do it in the market conditions, it's interesting because that was 2018 and the market had gone through a correction in 2017.
Yes.
I was kind of on I think the market was starting to go up already, but people were still very scared when I got involved in wholesaling. So I think it was more of a balanced market at the time. Now, I think in the current market situation, we're in more of a buyer's market at the moment. And how that affects wholesaling is you need to have an amazing networking skill. You got to have great connections with buyers because it's going to ultimately be those relationships that are going to take deals to the finish line in wholesaling.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and I mean, so tell us when, like, how long ago was this? This few years ago, and now you're up to 200 deals. Like, how did you jump from in such a short period of time? Like, how did you scale that business so quickly?
Okay, there's a few things that happened, and I think it all just kind of fell into place. I wouldn't necessarily say it's all coincidence or luck, but there's obviously an aspect of luck to it. And then there was a lot of, repetitive efforts and doing things the right way. So, like I said, when I started, no connections, no capital. So my first mission was to develop the wholesaler skill set, which involved me speaking to sellers. So anyone that had a phone number that even had an indication that they were selling their property, I was calling them. And I knew that most of that was not going to lead to business, but I figured that this is the fastest way to learn what motivated sellers are and how to communicate with them and how to actually get great deals. The next steps for me were to actually network with investors, buyers, people that could bring capital to the table, and ultimately connect them with the deals. Right. So I was going to every networking event I possibly could. I was meeting as much investors as I could. And how it all played out for me in real life was that was 2018. So the first 6 months or so, I was getting about one deal wholesaled per month. And most people will talk about all their successes and they don't tell you about any of the failures, right? So I'll tell you guys right now, like I got maybe the first 6 months, I actually successfully wholesaled 6 deals, but I probably got like 20 or 25 deals under contract and like did not actually successfully wholesale them. So, if anyone's going to tell you this is like an easy way to get into real estate, it's definitely not the easiest strategy. It takes a lot of effort and hard work. But that was like my training wheels stage. After that, I was basically seasoned. And on my 7th deal, I came across a property that it got appraised for 275 when I had it under contract. It got appraised for 275. I picked it up for 175, and I decided to actually close on it with private money that connections that I built up through all the networking.
Yeah.
Right. So I met a broker. He got me a loan to my appraised value, and I was able to close on this property. And I was very scared, but I was able to close on the property with no money down at all.
Yeah.
And then I basically just wholetailed it. I just took it from wholesale buying price, closed on it, and then sold it again. And we made about 70K on the deal. And I just deployed all that capital right back into my own business, and everything started to snowball from there.
Mm-hmm. So as in you put in more money towards marketing to get more leads, right? And then maybe hire people to scale this up.
Absolutely. So I think what I did with that money, like I went out for dinner just to congratulate myself. And then I just put all the money right back in the business. And what that did for me was I went from doing about 1 deal a month to about 4 deals a month right away. And everything started snowballing from there.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. And I love hearing stories like that, So I was listening to a podcast the other day about, leverage, right? And how leverage is the key to growth. And he explained it so beautifully is that, the leverage is the difference between your input and your output. And the more output you get with the least amount of input is leverage. So you can leverage money, you can leverage time, you can leverage labor, you can leverage all these things, but ultimately you're leveraging something to increase your output, right? And that's exactly what you did. So maybe tell me about leverage. Like, what did you leverage to increase? So you're getting 1 deal a month, and now you've exploded 4 times that to 4 deals a month. What did you do to get there?
Okay, so a few things happened around that time. So number one, leverage was money. So this is like the most money that I ever come into to me at that point in time in my life, I was blown away. Like I remember looking at that check when I closed on when I sold the property and closed on it, and I was like, wow, I just can't believe how I could make all this money so easily. This is insane.
Yeah,
Like,
it is insane. Yeah, some people don't even make that in a year, right?
absolutely. So that I just left. I took advantage of that and used those funds as leverage. But I actually did another crucial move at that time. One of the people that had purchased one of my wholesales prior to that, they had sold their wholesale. They had flipped the property that I sold to them, and they called me back. And I remember this very clearly. Like it was Christmas holidays in 2018. Like, and it was like a obscene time of the night too. Like it was just didn't make sense. Like he called me at this time, but he was just so excited. So he called me, I think, at about 11 o'clock at night. And he's like, I just sold this property. We need to get more properties and let's do it together. Let's flip these properties. And this person had a background in renovations and flipping, right? So we partnered on, we partnered on several deals moving forward. And that's how I actually transitioned into not just wholesaling, but also flipping as well, because I was able to leverage that person's expertise that I didn't currently have at that moment, right? So we were able to just accelerate both of each other's growth at that moment.
Right. So you were basically you were the one who was finding the deals, getting them under contract, and then you guys were working together through his channels and expertise to basically renovate the properties.
Correct. So that person had been involved in real estate for like, I think 10 or 12 years at that point in time. And very deep Rolodex of contacts with contractors, with financing as well. So we were able to pretty much right away scale up when I started flipping, I didn't flip, like that first flip was the only time I flipped one house. Like since then I've been flipping multiple houses at once. Yeah. And it was only possible because of those connections that took place.
Right. And so I know that your deals are, I mean, one of the smart things you did was you went into less competitive areas where you could, potentially find maybe juicier profits, and with less competition from other wholesalers, perhaps, right?
Absolutely.
I would say that was your competitive advantage.
I think it is, or was one of my competitive advantages. So I think that a lot of people as investors, they want to stick to a certain geographic area. And that, I believe, location is super important in investing. Like it definitely is important. But I believe that the discount compared to the value of the property is just as important as the location. So for, you mentioning certain areas, right? Like we picked up, I'm trying to think of some properties I picked up in my first year. I picked up a property in Dundalk, Ontario, but it was like rural Dundalk. You guys know where that is?
No, I don't even know where that is.
It's like 40 minutes northwest of Orangeville, let's say. It's like a very rural area.
Okay.
And we picked it up for like just over $100,000 at the time. And we observed, like we noticed that land was selling around there for like close to $200,000. And renovated houses were like $400,000 to $500,000. So we were like, oh man, like let's just flip this, right? So that's what we did. Whereas like I know that other buyers had actually looked at the exact same deal at the time. I remember it clearly, and nobody else wanted to pull the trigger.
Yeah. Crazy. Yeah, no, that's awesome. Yeah, no, for sure. It's that discomfort is what was your competitive advantage, because everyone else was uncomfortable with that sort of unknown territory, right? Everybody likes to stick and is comfortable with the areas that they know and that they've traditionally worked in. And the further you go out, the more unknowns, right?
Yeah, I mean, including us. We wouldn't buy that kind of property because we're just not comfortable with it, right?
Yeah.
That's good for you.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Thank you. Maybe we can just fast forward today. Talk to us a little bit about what your business looks like, what your structure looks like. Do you have staff, and how are you managing sort of this business today?
Okay, so where we are today, I have a division of my company that's wholesaling. We have a division that's flipping properties. And then we also have a short-term rental division that we basically started up about a year ago. And we're growing that. In terms of my team, we have, I should have counted this up before I got on the call. So my girlfriend helps part-time in the business as an administrator. I have a virtual assistant for myself. I have an acquisition person. I have a disposition person. I have a project manager, and then we have a full-time marketing person. I might be missing one or two people, but that's the core of the team.
Yeah, for sure.
Amazing.
And now you've basically brought all of your flipping in-house as well, is what is my understanding.
Yes. Yeah. So it took me a while to understand flipping on my own, but after getting through several flips, I've been through a lot of them now and gained a lot of experience. So I've taken that in-house. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And so we record these podcasts ahead of time sometimes, but I'm pretty sure the market's not going to have changed too much from now till when this podcast gets released. So maybe talk to us a little bit about the market, because the market, it's interesting. Like 2018 was a great time to have started in this business. The market was definitely sort of at its infancy of growth and what continued to be a massive trajectory of growth over the last couple of years. And now we're in a different time now. So talk to us about how you're navigating the current market and, how any investor can navigate what's happening right now, especially relevant in your business, because, there's a lot of fear in the market right now.
Yes. So, okay. I'm going to start by saying wholesaling, but wholesaling means basically any properties I'm buying, whether they're flips or wholesales, right?
Yep.
So I consider wholesaling relatively recession-proof, because when the market goes down, all you do is you just adjust your price down to go with the market, right? So what this has led to for us is that when we speak to a seller now, compared to last year, the conversations have actually flipped. And what I mean by that is last year, we would have sellers telling us, give me your price because I got 20 other guys coming by today. They'll give me their price. I'll decide whatever's best for me, right?
Yeah.
Now we can actually tell sellers we have 20 other people calling us today that want to sell their house. And we only can buy one of them. So if you want to sell your property, for sure, you really have to work with us. And these conversations, I'm not saying that in a mean way, but the conversations have completely changed, right? Sellers understand. I wouldn't say all of them understand, but a lot of them, they're smart people. Like they know the market's moving too, and they're watching it, right? So if they are motivated to sell, we're getting better deals than we were last year.
Nice.
Yeah, that's good.
That's good to hear.
And what about your buyers?
Yes. So, okay. People are still buying properties. I have noticed that there is fear in the market. As a wholesaler, what I've told my team is that, okay, you're going to have a harder time wholesaling flip properties right now. So we need to get bigger discounts to make sure it makes sense for our buyers. We've also allowed a little more flexibility than we did in the past. Whereas like last year, we put out a wholesale property and we'd wholesale it in like a day or so, like firm offer, no conditions, big deposit. Now we're looking to get things done like inspections, appraisals. So we provide like a little bit of a layer of security for our buyers. What else can I tell you about the buyers? I've had discussions with my team about this as well. And we feel that landlords are still very aggressively buying right now.
Yeah.
People that don't necessarily need to liquidate the property right away.
Yeah.
And because they're taking advantage of the market's great prices, right? So what I like to tell people, a lot of people have talked to me about the market recently. Like I feel like so many people reach out to me every week about it. And the position I'm taking on the market is basically that there's no good market, there's no bad market. There's just seller's market and buyer's market. So right now is the time for buyers, really.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. No, and it's interesting you say that because now more than ever, especially for buy and hold investors, I can see that the numbers make sense on a lot of properties. Whereas, in February, the numbers made absolutely no sense. People were picking up, duplexes. We saw duplexes in like Durham region selling like well over $1 million. Like I won't even tell you how much over $1 million they were selling for.
Far over.
Yeah. Whereas now, we're seeing people, things have come back down. There's one duplex that we've been watching on the market just out of curiosity in Hamilton, where we invest a lot in, where it's been on the market for a long time and it's not priced unreasonably at all. So, even at the price that it's listed at, like, I'm like, well, that makes sense now. Like you can at least cash flow on this property. So yeah, for buy and hold investors, to me, it's a no brainer. Like you got to buy based on the numbers, not on the market sentiment. And the numbers make sense right now.
They do.
Yeah. I mean, it's sorry, just to add, like, especially from a buy and hold investor, the rents are strong.
Super strong.
Stronger than they've ever been. We're getting like just for a 2-bedroom like $2,000 plus.
Yeah.
So it's definitely for a smart buy and hold investor right now is like buying season.
Yeah.
Because you're not going to get these types of deals. You can really people are not afraid to put in lowball offers now. There's huge supply. And you can negotiate the price down to whatever makes sense for you. And rental demand, as I said, is strong. So, you can ride this out for the next year or so until things kind of, I think personally, going to go back on track when the rates go down again.
Absolutely. Guys, like right now, for anyone that's listening, I'm not even telling you to buy from our wholesales directly. Like you could go on MLS. There's deals everywhere.
There is.
If you're a buyer, just make offers.
Yeah,
make offers. Sure. You can make offers on MLS for like $100,000 under asking, no problem. And you're probably going to get something.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. And maybe, so we've talked a lot about the wholesale. We've talked about some of the flipping. You mentioned the short-term rental. Talk to us about why you pivoted into short-term rental and what that's looking like for you.
I started to revisit at a certain point. I think I was maybe like 2 years into wholesaling and flipping, which is like purely active income. And you're always seeing these big checks coming in. And it's like, at first it's mind blowing. It's always mind blowing, to be honest with you. It's just like when you don't have money when you start out and then you start seeing big money coming in, it's like really mind blowing. But I started thinking about some of the properties we had sold over time. And even sometimes I'd look back and see what happened with them. And then I'd see that people who had held some of our wholesales for like 2 or 3 years, and then they sold them for so much more than I had sold them to them for. Or, I see people that turn some of my flip properties into rental properties. And it got me thinking that I really should consider the passive income side of the business, because the reality is that, even if you're making a lot of active income, it could change at any moment. Or, not only could it change at any moment, it's not going to last forever, period. You eventually cannot move at the same pace forever. Right. So, and I see flipping as like a very young man's game. Like it's a lot of things happening. Right. So, am I going to be flipping properties when I'm like 70 years old? Probably not. Right. So I got to start building a portfolio though, if I want to support that.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, exactly.
No, 100%. I mean, that's what we just recently discussed, that, from our flipping business perspective, obviously things have changed. And like, I've got a couple of properties on the market right now where we're trying to sell, but, it's taking a lot longer. But we also look at hey, we have a strong rental portfolio that is, actually now is cash flowing really well. And, we can ride out the next couple of months or years, even if we have to, without doing any active income, generating any active income. So that is, that's why we always believed in the long-term as well as the short-term simultaneously.
Yeah. And it's not about timing the market, they say, right? It's about time in the market. And we've been through the waves. We started buying 10 years ago, over 10 years ago. And, it goes up and down and up and down, but it's ultimately that time is eventually that portfolio is going to slow and steady increase and your debt gets paid down and the rents are increasing because rental demand is never going away, right? Especially in strong markets like in Ontario where we invest. So yeah, no, definitely. So talk to us. So you decided, okay, I need to build a portfolio. Why did you decide that short-term rental was going to be your strategy? Again, somewhat more of an active strategy, but still integrating the buy and hold.
Okay, so this is going to be the first time I mention this on any kind of podcast. Before I actually got involved in wholesaling, I was looking into real estate and I came across short-term rental arbitrage. And I had actually purchased some courses and things like that. So like I already had researched into it. I think I just genuinely had an interest towards short-term rentals, right? And I never forgot about that. So right now is August 2022. Okay, so a year ago in July of 21, I was having a conversation with an investor friend of mine and he had a vacant rental property. It was furnished as well, by the way. So vacant furnished rental. And he had told me it was vacant in the beginning of the pandemic. So I was like, wait, is this the same property that you told me was vacant from the start of the pandemic? He's like, yeah. I'm like, well, why did you just leave it vacant? It's like, oh, I'm too, I don't want to get any crappy tenants. I'll just let the market keep appreciating.
Yeah.
I'll rent it to the right person, but I just don't want any crappy tenants. So I was looking at that and I said, hey, would you be open to having me rent the place to put it on Airbnb? And he said, yeah, absolutely. You're probably going to be the best tenant I've ever had. And so we did that and it started cash flowing right away. Around that time, it was the same month, I actually, in my wholesaling business, picked up 2 cottages. And I looked at the Airbnb, the short-term rental potential, and I was blown away. This is like the beginning of me seeing what the potential of short-term rentals is. I was just like blown away by how much they can produce. And so I closed on both of those properties, and that's how it all got started.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I mean, that's the great thing about being in business, being an entrepreneur, is that you're seeing these opportunities and you're taking action very quickly. Like we all have had to pivot very quickly because the way the market changed was like from the peak, like it started going, cooling off fairly quickly. So it's kudos to you that you actually pivoted very quickly and you saw the opportunity, you did your research, because that's the other thing, right? Like a lot of people talk about short-term rentals or they talk about multifamily, but they take years to take action.
Yeah.
Right?
Go to like 500 seminars and, listen to 15 podcasts. And then they're still like, oh, I don't know if this is for me. Right. So, I mean, it's that, I think that's so apparent in this conversation for all our listeners. It's just your speed of implementation has always been like, you go to that seminar, you're like, yes, I'm doing this. You go, you see this opportunity, you're like, yes, I'm doing this. And then, you take that action very quickly. And that speed of implementation is ultimately, and no one's going to say that it's going to be smooth sailing every step of the way, but you learn as you go. And while you're going, I'm sure you're learning, right? You're still going to those seminars and you're still listening to things and learning, but it's all very actionable now, right?
Yes, absolutely. I think one of the things that I've realized in my own life, if I delay on or procrastinate on something and I actually give myself time to think about it too much, I stop doing it.
Yeah.
That's for me. If I don't take action almost immediately, I'll procrastinate and it just like falls by the wayside. So I remember that when I was beginning in short-term rentals, I literally just told that person, I'm like, well, I'm going to look into it. I'll call you back tomorrow. And that night I went over to a family member's house and I was talking to them about it. And I was like, hey, like, I'm already doing pretty good with what I'm doing. Like, what about doing this new thing? Maybe I'm thinking about doing it, but I don't know if I should do it. And he basically said, what do you have to lose? You're going to furnish the place? I'm like, well, it's furnished already. He's like, well, then what are you going to lose? Like, basically nothing. You got nothing to lose. You might as well try it. I was like, well, you're right. You have a pretty good point.
Yeah.
So I just
Yeah.
did it. The next day, I just jumped into it.
Yeah, for
Nice.
sure. And I know we've talked a lot about strategy here, and you're a fairly young guy. How do you keep yourself motivated? Like, what is your why? What is driving you? I mean, like you already said, you already got this wholesale business, and now you have this flipping business. You're already successful, and now you've added short-term rentals. And we've had a few conversations offline about some other strategies you're looking into, and some other locations you're potentially looking to diversify into. What is your motivator? Like, what is continuing to push you to continue to grow, or to try all these different things?
Okay. So I've thought about this before. A lot of people have asked me this. I'm part of various like other masterminds coaching programs, and that's probably the number one question people like to ask in those when you join a mastermind or you get coaching, everyone's going to ask you, everyone that works with you is going to ask you that question. And I've never really had a great answer to that. But I took a lot of time to really think about that. And what I came to was the reason why is to have the best life you possibly can. Right. So that's what that means to me is you do what you want, when you want, and how you want.
Yeah.
Right.
For sure.
So time freedom, money freedom, and
Correct.
just basically agency to make decisions however you wish.
Definitely. I could probably give you guys a lot more detailed explanations, but like that's really what it boils down to,
Yeah,
right?
100%.
And
yeah, a lot of entrepreneurs will give you a similar rendition about, freedom and what that means to them, but ultimately it comes down to some level of freedom.
yes.
Yeah, no, that's great. Yeah, I mean, we're kind of.
Yeah. Did you? I heard you've been kind of exploring the U.S. market. I don't know. Is that just preliminary? Just maybe tell us a little bit about that side of things.
Okay, so this is something new for me. I basically I I figured out that I'd like to join to start investing in the States. The reasoning behind it is partially for lifestyle purposes, so that ties into the why, right?
Yeah.
I don't love Canadian winters, so I'd love to spend them in warmer places, like Florida, for example.
Yeah.
And as I started to look into investing in the States, I started finding out that there's a lot of advantages to that. Like there's better weather, there's better treatment to in certain states. You get landlord-friendly states. You have better tax treatment, for example, right? There's higher cash flow on properties in relative to the purchase price, right? So as I started to investigate this, I basically decided that this is definitely something that I'd like to go for. And so this year I've spent probably about 6 to 8 weeks this year traveling in the States, going to different states, just scoping out the markets. I have started making offers on properties, and I managed to get a couple of them. I managed to get something under contract, but I haven't closed on anything just yet.
Oh, that's cool.
Great.
Again, you got some speed going there. Good for you. So commendable.
Yeah, for sure. And are you looking to implement like a short-term rental strategy there? Multifamily? What sort of type?
What's your primary sort of vehicle?
I think that in the States is going to be a great buy and hold strategy for me. When I compare Canada versus the US, I really like that in Ontario, when it comes to wholesaling and flipping, like we can make some really, really lucrative flips. We can do some really lucrative assignment fees. And if you're going to go to a market where in the States, for example, where the average purchase price is like $200,000, you can't really expect that you're going to make, $50,000 assignment fee, for example, wholesaling a deal like that, because the wholesale fee in relation to the purchase price is just not there.
Right.
However, I can buy a property for $200,000 from a motivated seller, and it might be able to cash flow at like 20% cap rate, for example, right? So these things are possible, whereas they would be very difficult to do in Canada to find a property that could cash flow that heavily. So for the US, I'm looking at it as a buy and hold strategy.
Yeah.
Any specific states in the US that you're looking at?
Okay, out of the states I've visited, I really like Tennessee. I like Florida. Um, I'm curious about some of the other states surrounding those areas as well. Places like Alabama, the Carolinas,
Yeah.
and I managed to get a property with partners on the ground. We got a property in Ohio under contract. Ohio was off my radar completely, but through the process of doing due diligence on that, it was a 17-unit portfolio. And through the process of doing due diligence on that portfolio, I saw that Ohio is very landlord friendly, very low purchase prices, very high cash flow. And it's right in our back door, basically. Like you could just drive down to Ohio in a day, no problem. So I'm definitely going to be keeping an eye on Ohio as well.
Yeah.
Cool.
Only downside is you want to avoid the winter there as much.
Yeah. Still has cold winters though.
Yeah.
But yeah,
sure.
Ohio is definitely a great market, landlord friendly, like you said, business friendly. And yeah, the pricing is
Low
very
barriers to entry,
attractive there. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. Well, yeah, no, thank you for sharing all of this with us. We usually like to ask our guests, is there sort of a quote or a saying that resonates with you or your life, or, something that you'd like to share?
A quote that resonates with my life. Wow. Well, this has been on my Facebook for a very long time, and it's be more, do more, achieve more. I like that one.
Yeah.
Nice.
No, that's definitely a good one. And I like the be more part too, so I actually, we were just talking about this, and, it's entrepreneurship is about who you become when you achieve those goals, right? When you set those goals and you achieve them, and who you become in the process. Like when you started out in 2018, who was that Michael Lee, and who is the Michael Lee today, right? And I'm sure, without doubt.
I mean, yeah, besides like financial success,
we're not even talking about the financial success
aspects that obviously, you have evolved
as
to,
a person, as a leader, as a business person, as a, just as a friend, I'm sure, as a partner. All of these things change as you evolve, right?
For sure. I can't even, it's been just enormous personal growth the whole way through.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the biggest wins that you can get from, investing. And just like you said, it's not just like, about making money. Money's like fake stuff. It's like a resource that's not even real, right? Basically, right?
Yeah.
But what you get and how you grow, it stays with you forever.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
100%.
absolutely. Yeah, no, that's awesome. And if people want to get in touch, we'll put it in our show notes as well. What's the best way for them to reach you?
The best way to reach out to me is through Facebook, Michael Lee, or through Instagram. You can find me at official Michael Lee.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah, we'll definitely add it in our show notes. If anybody's interested in reaching out or following along on Michael's journey, definitely should follow him. So thanks again for being on the show. We really enjoyed the conversation, and
thank you very much for having me.
Yeah, awesome.
Thanks.